Welcome. Just after 3 o'clock, call this meeting of the local Transportation Commission to order. And would you mind calling the roll, please?
Sure. Commissioner Fallman. Commissioner Gitlin.
Here.
Commissioner Hemmingson.
Here.
Commissioner Kine. Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Policy Advisor Tucker.
Here.
And Chair Short.
Here. Okay, move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Howard, would you mind leading us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you for that. Moving on to public comment period. Anyone wishing to make public comments regarding matters either on or off the agenda and within the Commission's jurisdiction may do so at any time. However, the Commission is not permitted to act on non-agendized items. Do we have any public comment? Mr. Holmes.
Good afternoon. Charlie Helms, Crescent City Harbor District. Yeah, I just wanted to come up and thank the Commission and its director for assisting us in looking at the traffic situation around the harbor. A number of the business owners in the area had come and talked to the harbor commissioners, who then directed me as staff to go out and write a letter to Caltrans and get some signatories from businesses in the area. So Tamara Layton actually has addressed 2 of our Harbor Commission meetings and helped me draft the letter. And she will be addressing the Harbor Commission at next Tuesday's meeting. But I just wanted to come up and thank you all for taking the time and putting a focus on this. I know no one's gotten killed or no one's gotten run over, but we're worried about it, and it's an area that we think there should be some attention paid to. And I just wanted to thank the Commission and Tamara Layton for the assistance they've given the Harbor Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles. Thanks. We will continue that conversation. Any other public comment?
Hi, Eileen Cooper, Delmar County. Sadly again, we have had another death on Highway 199, and driving back from the Gasky raft races, I was taking a careful look at the road as we were driving, introducing the people who were driving to the issues along that road. And really, some of our visitors riding that are astounded that we're even thinking about putting big trucks, let alone have an actual plan to put them on there. We rode along that very segment of road where there was a death, and there are so many stretches along that river that have absolutely no shoulders that are not being fixed. There was not one thing between Gasky and Hayuchi that is being fixed for these trucks. You got a river, you got no place to go on the other side. No shoulders for miles of that highway, and the few itty-bitty places we're touching don't even meet the standards for those things. So it's so dramatically wrong to me. It's unbelievable that intelligent people have gone so far to really endanger the public's well-being. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move down to our...
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to respond to Harbor Director Helms' appearance here. I see Commander Deepy from the Highway Patrol here, and bring it to our Commission's attention that this letter drafted to Caltrans of June 21st expressing the concern that Mr. Helms expressed about the need to calm the traffic on 101 at Citizens Dock is an ongoing subject. I know it's not funded, but this is something of high priority, and I know we did discuss this with no direct resolution prior to this letter of June 21st. And I wanted to draw attention, there are several very interested parties who've signed this letter, and more to come, I'm understanding, and I very much appreciate Mr. Helms and the unanimous signatures of all harbor commissioners, plus a number of businesses are affected by this. So though there isn't any existing funding right now, I would hope that this priority will stay high priority. And as we move forward, we look for solutions in an effort to calm traffic before that one accident that could have been avoided. And Ms. Cooper brings up a good point where we want to prevent something happening before that time. So thank you, Mr. Helms, and Commander Deepey, thank you for coming today and keeping eyes on this, and any additional information which you can provide this commission. I know I would personally appreciate, and I hope the commission would too, as we move forward in finding resolution. Thank you.
And I apologize for that, Roger. You asked me to bring that up during the meeting, and I made the bad assumption that Mr. Helms' comments would have taken the place of that, so
It was no protocol intended to violate. I just didn't know. It wasn't agendized, and the exact way of having this presented was one in which public comments came first, and Mr. Helms came up and spoke. And I want to draw attention, as we've done, and this is high priority, as we've all agreed. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, we're moving on to a public hearing. Conducting a public hearing to gather information on unmet transit needs. Tamara?
The Del Norte Local Transportation Commission administers the unmet needs process on an annual basis. Much of the work is done through the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council. We meet and we talk about the unmet transit needs, and we set priorities for the unmet transit needs. This is an obligation that we have for as a recipient of TDA funds. So we have met, the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council has met. I posted an ad in the newspaper over a month ago per the requirements, and this is the formal hearing is today. The next step is that I will gather all comments from the hearing today and from the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council meeting. I will put them together in a resolution, and it will most likely be a resolution in the consent agenda in the future meeting. Again, it's a process that we're obligated to have. I continue to let folks know that we identify our unmet needs, and I think it's important to do that, to keep our eye on our unmet needs, but there is no additional transit funding to address those needs. So after we adopt the resolution, a copy of the resolution will be sent to Redwood Coast Transit Authority. I think they're doing a bang-up good job in meeting as many needs in the community as we can with the funding that's available. But they will, as they always do, they will take a look at the unmet needs, and we always try and find a way to meet those needs.
Thank you. And this is just for clarification, it's a process we do every year, and we keep that updated and continue to strive toward meeting those goals. So I guess we'll open the public hearing and ask for any identifying any unmet needs that are not currently on our list. And first, I'll open it up to the public. Anybody want to speak on our unmet transit needs?
I didn't look over the list, but I do take the bus quite a lot. And Eileen Cooper. The route from Gasky coming back into town doesn't hook up with a lot of the buses very smoothly. It comes at an odd hour, and you like just miss the bus on the half hour. And so I don't know if there could be, I think an effort to smooth out some of the scheduling times might be a good thing. And I know you have a bus going up, all the way up North Crest and then down. I wondered if we might go up North Crest and come down Parkway and making a big loop so that we could reach perhaps more people along that roadway instead of just up and down North Crest. That might reach out to a broader number of people who occasionally might need a bus. And I don't know if we have fixed the where you can get a transfer anywhere so that you don't have to keep going back to Front Street Park, and you could transfer and use the transfer anywhere in town up to a certain amount of time. So it's all these scheduling and refinement of making it more convenient for users of the bus service, I think. What might make it more usable, user-friendly. I think having a good review of all of that is something we do every once in a while, but I don't know, it just seems like we stroll along and it doesn't change. We still have the same glitches for the users. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Be sure and bring that up at the Redwood Coast Transit meeting. Any other public comment about unmet transit needs?
If I may
Bring
just
it back.
respond to Eileen just for a second, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
Our Redwood Coast Transit meeting is dark for the month of July, so we'll take this up at our August meeting. Perhaps, Eileen, you can let me know what specific time give me specifics rather than generalities, and we'll see if we can, in the meantime, have that adjusted accordingly. If it's a half-hour difference, we might be able to tighten things up a little bit. We've made some adjustments on all our routes, as you know, and this one, if we miss something, I'd like to know about it ahead of time, before August. Okay, so, thank you.
Any other comments from the commission about unmet transit needs? Okay. We'll adjourn to the Policy Advisory Committee and move on to our next agenda items, which is the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes from the June 14th meeting, accept active transportation count reports with appendices, the city pavement management plan, and also the county pavement management plan.
Move to approve, Chair.
Do we have a motion to approve and a second? Do we have any public comment on our consent agenda? Seeing no public comment, we'll bring it back to the Policy Advisory Committee. Would you poll the vote?
Could I ask for who did the first and second again? Commissioner
I did.
Howard? Okay,
Howard, seconded by Hemmingson.
thank you. Okay. Commissioner Fallman?
Yes.
Commissioner Gitlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Yes.
Policy Advisor Tucker?
Yes.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes. Thank you for that. Moving on to our policy and administrative section of our agenda, we'll move on to discussion items.
Regarding Last Chance Grade, we had a PDT, Project Delivery Team meeting earlier this week that I call into, and
Thank you for
we-
expanding the acronym. I appreciate that.
I strive. In that Project Delivery Team meeting, we talked about the allocation that we have, the $5 million that we have from the California Transportation Commission in their May meeting, and we don't have a schedule yet. In our June meeting, the commission requested that I get a rough schedule for that project and how it's going to come together. I was hoping to have a rough schedule for the meeting today, but I don't have one yet, so we will look forward to receiving that in our next meeting. The Project Delivery Team didn't have a schedule either during the meeting, so this is just, it's all coming together right now. putting forward a schedule in public is a big step for them because it's a very much watched project, and they want to make sure that they put enough thought into the schedule before they simply release it to the public. So sit tight, and we'll have a project delivery team schedule upcoming. I understand that there are some site visits to Last Chance Grade this week. I don't have a lot of direct information about that. Maybe a couple of you do. But I believe that FHWA is coming in and doing some site visits to Last Chance this week. And in moving the work forward, so everybody's committed to moving the work forward for this first initial $5 million push to do some of the preliminary work.
I think, and Jerry could correct me because he's got some more recent information, but the FHWA visit is specifically to identify whether or not the grade, for purposes of funding an alternative route with federal highway funds, if the grade is going to remain in its current alignment or move off the grade. And that is the process this FHWA is out here studying, and I want to say for a 3 to 4 week period with 4 or 5 individuals from Federal Highways with Caltrans. That's my understanding, Jerry. I don't know if they addressed that at the last deal meeting, but that was my latest update.
No, I didn't get any information on that at all. Is this the team, is this the risk assessment team?
This is the risk assessment team.
Yeah, I knew they were supposed to come out, I just didn't know.
So hopefully they'll come to the conclusion that the rest of the county has come to a conclusion on, that this thing's going in the ocean. And to spend their money wisely elsewhere.
Please.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir.
So the language, if I'm understanding this correctly, Federal Highways has not changed its language yet to allow development of a bypass pending the functionality, which it exists as functioning right now, of the existing route. That still remains the language, prevents them from developing that alternate route as long as the 101 in its current alignment remains intact. Is that my understanding today, and it hasn't changed yet, and that's what we're working on?
That's not my understanding. My understanding, and Kevin, maybe you help me out if I miss it on this, but my understanding is that there are a lot of requirements before they allocate $1 billion and before they approve a off alignment or a new alignment for US 101, and they're coming in to assure themselves with their own organization and their own staff that a new alignment, given all the documentation that they have and their site visit, a new alignment is necessary. I believe that everybody believes that this is going to move forward smoothly. I don't think that there are any particular concerns about the consensus of this. We have consensus already from Federal Highway Administration, but we don't have the site visit, which is a requirement. So they're coming here to do the required site visit, but in terms of the alignment that we have now, I think that the alignment that we have now, and I could have misunderstood you, but we don't need to or want to. I mean, our new alignment needs to stay open until our old alignment or current alignment needs to stay open until a new alignment is open. And that's really what we're striving for on that, is to keep the current alignment open. So no, a failure is not necessary or even wanted on US 101. And it's not necessary to determine the new alignment is needed because we have such a vast amount of failures, and it's so expensive to keep it open on alignment right now.
No, that was not my question. I want to be perfectly clear. My understanding was language currently in Federal Highways document prevents the development of an alternate route unless there is a complete collapse of the existing route. Now, that language is being reviewed as we speak. That was my understanding. Now, is that so that they can move forward on that? I'd like some clarification on that.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I don't know if this will help, but my understanding is that, part of this is the fact that it's an emergency funding. In order to be eligible for emergency funding, usually this money is spent to fix the existing alignment. So there are exceptions to that. So an example is Devil's Slide in Southern California. Was used to bypass the slide area. One of the reasons why we're doing this assessment is because of that project. They actually learned a lot in the process of building the tunnel. It actually changed some of the hydrology and some other factors related to the slide, Devil's Slide itself. And so they're taking those lessons learned and trying to apply those to this situation to make sure that we are using the funding as best as possible. And if there is some solution that would work used along the existing alignment, they want to make sure that that is not an option.
And if I could add to what Kevin's saying, and if I could reference Commissioner Gitlin's comments, I think where the confusion might lie is that originally Caltrans was under the impression that if they advanced any types of funds into study of the alternative alignment, that would potentially violate revenue coming in from federal highways to actually build the alignment. And that was a policy decision that there was confusion on, and that was about 2 or 3 months ago. And I think the meeting that we all attended, hosted by Congressman Huffman, actually the confusion was laid to rest then, that policy did not exist in federal highways, and that if we forwarded those funds, like the $5 million which was allocated last month, to the expenditure on geotech and potentially some biological work, that it would not violate funds from the emergency pool being utilized on an alternative alignment.
I agree. The idea was that if we spent money ahead of time, then it wasn't technically an emergency.
Correct.
Yes, so that is.
That was laid to rest months ago,
Yes,
though.
yes, it was.
Okay.
Okay.
We still on last chance grade discussion, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
yes, sir. We haven't moved on yet.
Can I bring to the commission's attention an email which I forwarded to Tamara from Last Chance Grade Advisory Board member Kurt Stremberg on a recent Caltrans release, press release of the spending of $593 million. It was somewhat detailed as they went down the list of projects. Mr. Stremberg expressed his concern that Last Chance Grade was not listed, and he felt it was falling off the radar. That's his comments to me. I thought he would be here to say those exact words. So I think you do have a copy of that recent release, and perhaps the conversation can move toward, we'd like to keep this on the minds of all at Caltrans, that this is a priority and it wasn't listed in that original $593 million release of funding as a result of SB 1.
Okay, so if I could clarify, I believe that the press release that you're referencing, there wasn't any funding related to Last Chance Grade in the June meeting. The Last Chance Grade allocation was made in the May California Transportation Commission meeting, and they did put forward a very specific press release about Last Chance Grade. There was an article on the front page of our triplicate resulting from communication from Caltrans to our local media. So the June allocation did not include any allocations for Last Chance. And I believe that that's why it wasn't included on the list, is because it didn't pertain to that California Transportation Commission meeting.
Okay, that's fair. I'm passing on information from Mr. Stremberg, who expressed that concern. And he said he would try to be here today. In the absence of his not being here, I'm communicating that, and I'll let him know that.
And I did receive a similar email from Mr. Stremberg, and I understand the concerns. It feels like, as we haven't had a discussion on Last Chance Grade with the community for a while, his request was essentially, could Caltrans potentially come and do another town hall I've made that request directly to Matt Brady. He says he will talk to the folks that are running the project right now, Jamie and maybe Sebastian, or vice versa, to try to organize maybe a town hall towards the end of summer, early fall, to bring the community back up to speed, because I think, like we did at the fairgrounds, that would be timely, given that there's been a lot of progress since our last town hall meeting.
We did discuss that in the project delivery team meeting, but we did not, in the recent meeting, determine that we had enough information, enough new information. Caltrans is concerned that they are certainly willing to meet as often as possible, but there's no new information yet. The studies aren't done yet. There's no conclusions reached. There's no preliminary information even. So, what they're willing to have another public meeting, they're concerned that folks would just be hearing the same thing that they heard in the last one.
That's okay then, and I share the same concern as Mr. Stromberg. This still needs to be a priority, whether it's from Del Norte County, from Crescent City, or from the local transportation commission, to communicate extremely well, not only by means of email, not only by means of the website, but for those that don't use those platforms, that, like my parents who are of age 60 plus, that's the best way, is to have these town hall meetings when folks could come out and have direct contact and communication with their representatives that are directly on foot on the ground.
Okay,
That would be my suggestion, and that's exactly why I passed it on to him.
Okay,
It's been a while.
Yeah, so I can certainly go back to the project delivery team
And in
leader.
my opinion, there's been a lot that has changed since our last town hall meeting, with the allocations of funds, the paring down of the alignments from where it was. There's been a lot of movement on the grade, besides the allocations to keep the current alignment in line for the next decade plus, potentially.
Okay, well, Kevin and I together, we can bring that message back, and I would say get a meeting for this fall.
Thank
I think that late summer is probably not realistic, but for this fall sometime,
Yeah.
perhaps in October would be more
No,
realistic.
That's fine, and thank you, Chair.
That's absolutely fine. By then, we'll have some rough idea about where the $5 million is going to be spent, so there'll be some significant information to pass on at that meeting. I agree, it'd be valuable.
Chair, if I could speak.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so obviously, working with engineers in our office, they always want to provide as much detailed information as possible, but I do understand the need for, engaging the public. And so we can have some internal conversations within Caltrans to figure out, project manager, maybe some planning staff or some other folks can come and just provide some information. We can, keep the engineering folks busy working on getting that $5 million scheduled and planned. I did receive an email from the project manager. I just wanted to give you a little bit of more information about the schedule. So that because of the environmental complexities of last chance grade, they're looking at what they're referring to as accessible areas, and then maybe areas that are more sensitive. And so they're working on getting environmental clearance for geotechnical investigations in accessible areas, which the goal is to have that in place for spring of 2018. The geotechnical investigations in accessible areas, the approach would be in summer of 2018. And, I just wanted to emphasize the fact that the strategy with this $5 million is to try and get in there and understand some of the alternatives so that we can, have some information that will ultimately feed into the larger project, possibly eliminate some alternatives. At this point, it's hard to say, but getting some of that information that's going to allow Caltrans to make some important decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Anything else on last chance grade? Okay, Tamara, can we move on to US 199 intersection at Elk Valley Crossroad?
I don't have any new information on 199 and Elk Valley Crossroad. However, we should be, per the promise of Caltrans last fall, we should be having updated count numbers during this month, and I'm expecting that those are happening. Mr. Morgan is, pretty much on top of things, so I will check and confirm that with him, but I'm anticipating that that's the case.
Yes, I can
Yeah.
confirm. I did talk to David Morgan, and traffic counts are going to occur this month in order to capture, peak season counts as requested by the commission, and we'll share that information after it's been evaluated.
That's not done visually, right? It's done with the strips, the black cord that runs across the highway?
We actually use cameras
Cameras,
because the advantage of using cameras is that you can capture all the directions they're going, all the turns. If you just use tubes, you only get in one direction. Usually we actually have people go out and do hand counts, but cameras are much more effective and cost effective for Caltrans.
Very good.
I, for one, appreciate Caltrans's response to the commission on this. Anecdotally, there's no question that your numbers are going to change.
Oh.
I agree.
I have nothing new to report on the Collier Tunnel lights. I haven't had any response from our questions about that. I don't know, Kevin, if you have any updates on that?
Yeah, we're having some internal conversations. There's some confusion in terms of, I provided the information, the summary from the last meeting, and so they were looking that over. I'm not sure that they were aware of all of the power outages, so we are reaching out to Pacific Power to try to identify more clearly, how often the power is going out. In terms of providing some more information to some of the questions, there was a question about if there was a backup system. There is no backup system in place, so if the power goes out, then the lights in the tunnel will also go out, as well as the rest area. It's all on one system. The tunnel, just a little bit of information about the tunnel itself. It's relatively short tunnel compared to some of the tunnels that Caltrans operates. So it's not staffed 24/7 like some tunnels. I'm not sure about some of the other systems. Some of the longer tunnels have to have fire suppression systems. These complex systems that require much more electricity, and so they couldn't tell me whether those types of systems have backup generators or not. Fortunately, there are signs before you enter the tunnel that tell you to turn your headlights on, and so we'll continue to talk about the Commission's concern about the transition between entering and exiting the tunnel and the difference between the darkness of the tunnel and how light it is outside. So if you want to express what your concerns are, I can relay those to.
I think our concerns are that there is no backup system. I mean, when the power's out, and sometimes the power is out for quite a long time. That's my understanding of the
That's an
concerns.
understatement.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're correct.
I agree.
Okay, I can take the information about the long-term power outages and not having a backup system.
Okay.
Commonplace, per our conversation in our last meeting, there is a one-stop location on the homepage of our Transportation Commission website. You click the button, you go immediately it links you immediately to Commonplace to drop in your comments. So I did take care of that. What I realized that I have done on my phone is that I have what appears to be a app on my phone, but it's actually, if I could show you, it's just a one-button click that brings you directly to Commonplace. You can mark any website like this with a one-button push. So this is our home screen for Commonplace. It brings you right there, and that's by going to Google, finding the website just once, and then with your phone pad on the bottom, you say, put this on my home screen, and then you have something that operates like an app, but that isn't an app. I did talk to Commonplace about developing an app, but it would cost, the cost is so great that they think their product cost would go up so much to develop and maintain an app over time that the product itself would become cost prohibitive. And it was already on the high end of the scale for us in terms of choosing. So I actually agree with them that had their total cost, even including an app, been more expensive, that it would have probably pushed it over into the cost prohibitive area, and we likely would have made a different choice. So a little bit of investigation after our last meeting. If anybody needs help putting a website on the home screen of their phones, I'm happy to do it. To any of you, to any member of the public, it's just takes a couple touches with your finger and it's there. So it works, for me it works quite easily, and it makes any website function like an app on your phone.
Very good. Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Chair. I for one, appreciate some of the efforts that you've gone to create the URL and the ability for me to now take a picture and take it directly to the website. I would recommend next time you have the conversation with Commonplace, the problem I'm having and where the rubber meets the road on this specific function is you really want them to think long-term about having a mobile application. When you're on the road and you're seeing an event, it's very hard to navigate their website from an iPhone. It's not user-friendly from this device. And that's generally why apps are created in the first place, so you could have a little bit more functionality from your mobile device versus going home and having a PC if it's an hour or so before you get there. So that's my only comment and recommendation. I understand the costs associated with app development, but for the purpose of user-friendly direct interface at the moment that an incident may occur, and the functionality of navigating on your little phone or tablet when you're mobile, it might be something for them to consider.
Well, I believe that they are. I mean, this is their business, and I think that they consider it on a continuous basis. So maybe in the future it is something where they will make the leap.
That's how we're using it, is on the road, not at home on our PC. Thanks, Chair.
No problem. Any other comments on Commonplace? Okay, we'll move on to Commissioner comments and reports. Anyone? Mr. Fallman? Mr. Henningsen, nothing? Mr. Howard?
I have one. I've been getting increasing reports now from two individuals specific to rebar that is in the Smith River underneath the Caltrans project site, and I'm going to assume it's Caltrans' responsibility. I've asked Tamara to take a look at it. Tamara, where does something like this fall?
Well, we had this situation come up last year, and how Caltrans took a look at the rebar and the situation with the river at a similar place underneath the Haiuchi Bridge, and they what they ended up doing is bending the rebar over rather than cutting it, because if you cut it, it leaves a raw edge, and it with the river and the sand, the way it shifts, it seemed to them to be sort of adjusting the problem but not solving the problem. So that's the way that they addressed it the last time we had this problem. I haven't actually had a response back from Caltrans about this situation, so I will push a little bit. I think right now the river is still too high for them to do any actual work, and as, you know, maybe September comes around, it would be a better time for them to go in and take a look at these things. But I will give you an update on in our next meeting, and I'm hoping that the situation will be scheduled, if not resolved, by our next Transportation Commission meeting. They, you know, frankly, their initial response to the rebar in the river underneath the bridge was, gosh, that's not our rebar. But they immediately reconsidered that, and, you know, and are, you know, have taken steps to take care of the past problem, and I do believe that they will take care of it. This location is especially concerning. I mean, any construction debris in the river is concerning, but this is especially concerning because it's a place where families go to play in the river. It's one of the few sandy beaches. It's a little bit more of a gentle entry into the river rather than just jump off a rock and, you know, sink or swim. So I think that it's a well-used place where, you know, kids and families play, and I appreciate folks in the community who notice it, bring it to our attention, and I do believe that we'll get there and having a resolution to it in whatever way Caltrans can.
I just need to know where to send the receipt for my new raft that I'll need to purchase when it's filleted open.
Hopefully it's just your
Chairman.
raft.
Is there any clear danger? Is there any
Yes.
safety issue right now?
Yes.
Then maybe this should be pushed up for a higher priority rather than waiting for the water to descend to a certain level. If we've got a danger problem, we know about it now, then I think maybe we need to...
They might be able to do something in the interim until, you know, the river drops and they can take care of something more permanent. But I don't think that they can do the sort of the underwater torching without it being a really significant effort, and you can't do that significant effort in the water on the Smith River. So there's the sort of environmental catch-22 gotcha situation that we have. So I think I can ask them to do something in the interim at that location, and maybe they can take care of something now and then take a second look at it in September when the water's especially low.
I would have done something about it, but the project is way too big for me to even tackle.
Right, I mean, it's a pretty significant, yeah.
Mr. Tucker.
Yeah, I did bring up the issue with our maintenance staff, and they are looking into it. I'm not sure what the status of that is, but I did send them the pictures.
Okay.
And so but like Tamara mentioned, there are limitations to what our maintenance staff can do, and so they're going to do their evaluation. And just a little bit of context, you know, it was common practice that with old structures, they would leave them in place, you know, just dismantle them in place and just kind of leave stuff. So unfortunately, you know, our current generation, we're kind of left with picking up the pieces from past structures. So unfortunately, sometimes things like this kind of pop up, and so we realize, based on the proximity of this material, that it's probably Caltrans structures.
So Caltrans needs to develop a dive team.
We do have a dive team, it's not District 1.
Just not in District 1. Okay.
Thank you,
Well,
Kevin, for...
Mr. Gitlin, you got anything for comments or reports?
No, I do have a conflict on our next meeting date of August 9th. We'll be at our Pelican Bay Advisory Committee, same time, date, on Wednesday the 9th, so I'll not be at that meeting. I have to be at that meeting, not this one. That's a quarterly meeting, as you know.
I'm actually not confident that we'll need an August meeting. It's often a meeting that we end up missing for absent action items, but I don't generally make that determination until we're much, much closer to the date. It's hard for me to predict what's going to come up within the next month. So I'm somewhat anticipating that meeting may be canceled. We will definitely be having a TAC meeting, but the TAC meeting will be addressing kicking off the work program and those kinds of things that don't come back to the commission.
Very good. Might luck out, Mr. Gitlin. Mr. Tucker, do you have anything under comments or reports? Okay. Moving on, we'll adjourn as the Policy Advisory Committee and reconvene as the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission, and by poll vote, approve and adopt the actions taken by the Policy Advisory Committee on the items listed above.
Move for approval.
We
Second.
have a motion and a second for approval of the items listed. Do we have any public comments on the actions taken today? Seeing no public comment, we'll bring it back, and if you would poll the vote, please.
Commissioner Gitlin?
Yes.
Commissioner Fallman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Yes.
Policy Advisor Member Tucker? Oh, you don't vote on this,
No.
I apologize.
Correct.
Commissioner Howard?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes, thank you. And with that, we'll adjourn to possibly the next scheduled meeting, August 9th at 3. Thank you all.